Welcome to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast, a show about innovations, technology, and leaders in the recruitment industry. Brought to you by TalkPush, the leading recruitment automation platform.
All right. Good morning. Welcome back, everybody, to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast. Today on the show, I'm delighted to welcome Wagner Denuzzo, Head of Capabilities for Future of Work at Prudential Financial, who has led some initiatives at Prudential around the future of work, the transformation of talent, and is working on talent mapping for the future at Prudential. And we'll talk about organizational development at Prudential and maybe go back to some of your work at IBM before, if you're willing to walk us down memory lane, Wagner.
Thanks so much, Max. Nice to be here, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. So, future of work, I feel like everybody and nobody knows what it means. So perhaps you could start by telling us how this came about at Prudential Financial, the decision to create a future of work, work group.
Well, it's interesting because if you ask your audience how many of their companies are going through a transformation, probably everybody's going to raise their hands. So transformation now is a continuous process of finding differentiation in the marketplace anyway. So Prudential was embarking on a major transformation. We knew we had to accelerate the way we engage with our customers, the way we offer services and start creating experiences for them. So that logically led to, we need to focus on our people. Do we have the capabilities to go through this transformation and be successful? What are the new ways of working? What are the new ways of designing the organization? What are the new ways that we can engage the right talent out there to come join us? So all this came to fruition in the future of work. Today, people say, what's future of work? To me, future of work is nothing but creating the capabilities to create a future-ready organization. And future-ready requires you to be adaptable and be conscious that things are continuously changing. So that's our forecast.
Your future and we all have the same, we have a joint future, hopefully. And our future, I think, is all kind of pushing the marketplace towards these same types of talent, digital, good with numbers, and then creative, nimble and quick. These are universal qualities we look for. So how much of that search will be recruitment-led versus development-led? Because, it's kind of that nature versus nurture debate. Are you adapting the organization by changing your hiring practices, or is it more around training and development?
That's really interesting that you say that, because everything's contextual. In my view, everything is contextual. Prudential has a long history of employee-centric policies and strategies. So of course, as we evolve, as we create new capabilities, as things evolve and we need to shift to new skills, higher value skills, we need to focus on upskilling and reskilling. But that does not necessarily meet our needs for fresh thinking and fresh skills that sometimes is much better for us to buy or borrow than build. So I think what you're saying is recruitment plays a key role here, because now, at least at Prudential, we have a strategic workforce planning process that we are implementing now. We're in piloting phases, but it's very critical that the TA team starts getting acquainted with what are the business needs are in terms of the capabilities they're building, because roles are changing. My team does role reimagining roles. So we are deconstructing roles. We are rebuilding. There's so much technology now that helps to rebuild roles based on skills and valuing skills. So even those traditional surveys that we use for TA, they're going to be outdated very soon if we don't keep up with the reinvention of roles. Job descriptions are going to change. I always say in HR, for example, I come from HR, and I think we need a talent systems architect. What is that? I would create the job description immediately because I think we need it. We need the digital savvy HR leader. We need the HR leader who is a synthesizer of analytics. We need an HR leader who is strategic in their thinking about the outside in. So to be honest, it's a prime time for recruiters to reinvent themselves, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the recruiters that I'm coming across now, very different than at the start of my career when we were looking for pure sales guys, hustlers, people with charisma and the ability to remember name people on a first name basis very naturally and fluently, and to go, I live in Hong Kong where you have recruiters who are working the bars, basically exchanging name cards to create a portfolio of customers. Well, the bars were closed most of the year. And today, most of my customers, I see they're more likely to be working on automated workflows, Excel sheets, kind of like deep thinking work. Of course, it's also because it's the different nature of recruitment when you're dealing with high volume recruitment versus the more white glove service you would get in the financial services. But basically, I think it's the rise of the introspective, deep thinking recruiter, which I've witnessed. Is that a similar transformation that you're seeing at Prudential?
Yes, you know why? Because as you're speaking, I was thinking how important it is to create the right candidate experience nowadays, right? We can no longer just pretend that the candidate experience is not relevant to us, because at least for Prudential, a candidate that comes through our doors and is not hired, that's a lost customer if they don't have a good experience. So the idea that customers, the market you're serving, your candidates, your employees, they're one community. Think this way. We have one community of people who might be coming in and out of your ecosystem. So this creates a lot of complexity. And then the deep thinking, you talk about deep thinking, I think about the telemarketplace. Every company is thinking about a telemarketplace. If you're not thinking about a telemarketplace, you better accelerate your thinking, because we have about 6 or 7 top-notch vendors out there, and they're all using machine learning, AI, to really infer skills and complement the recruiter's savviness, right? You talk about the quality of the recruiter. Today, a recruiter has to be a little more analytical in their approach. They need to understand the algorithms that are helping them source their candidates. So all this is very exciting, but at the end of the day, you cannot benchmark your future. I truly believe in that. If you want to differentiate yourself, you go forward with something that is innovative and you build the future you want. So I think digital platforms now are allowing us to do this, right? We enable ourselves with technology, with platforms, and then we create a special engagement. What I say is the systems of record are there, systems of insights are there now. Now it's time for us to create the systems of engagement that are going to create the differentiation.
You just talked about earlier, was it head of
systems architect?
Talent systems architect. That sounds good. I think I've seen a few of those, but it was more like HRIS manager, which is the old way of calling things, I suppose. What I've saw in the last few months was, from my very unique perspective, was that, unique as in biased from my angle of the world, was that with shrinking budgets for many companies that were going through cost reduction, came a desire to reduce all the fat in the system, including all system integration, and to consolidate their spend with 1 or 2 vendors, 1 or 2 system of record. And so the architects that were, populating the world became, I guess, had less budget to work with. And so I had to consolidate their spending with a fewer number of vendors. So I think it was a good year for really big systems of record, and maybe a more difficult year for the smaller tech vendors that were, not a must-have.
Yeah. But that's a good point too, because the challenges that we face with the less budget in a more constrained environment leads to a lot of innovative thinking. And to be honest, I think the advantage of the smaller vendors and partners, I call them partners, is that if they are in front of you in the right time with the right product, things go very fast. That's the other thing. Things can go very fast if you are in the right place, in the right time, in the right context. But it's hard to find those niches. But I think that's the curiosity that we have to apply. We are always curious about new vendors, new partners, because sometimes you find something that's really genius and you need to go with it,
Yeah, a real differentiator.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've got a couple of aces up my sleeve waiting for next year, for this year. I wanted to go back to IBM. I know IBM is a while back for you already, a couple of years.
Yeah.
but it's got such a reputation, and you spent 10 years there almost, and it's got such a reputation as a place where talent is being developed, as a place where you spend your entire career. And I was hoping you could walk us back on, what workforce planning meant at a giant like IBM, and what their philosophy is around talent. Because I'm going back to my MBA days, and all the case studies were about IBM, this place where you create an extremely competitive environment and manage to attract the best engineers in the world.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I'm so fond of IBM. Once an IBMer, always an IBMer, by the way. But what is striking to me is that how amazing it was in 2009, 2008, we transformed HR and we start creating strategies that were so ahead of the time. We had the inference of skills. We had already applied our algorithms to propensity to learn. Who are the people who have propensity and curiosity? We had so many systems that helped us create an even bigger strategy. And to your point, why IBM has this strong philosophy on talent? Because actually we enable the people to own their careers. We always talk about own your career. Your career is yours, you make it. But if you don't enable the talent, you don't have much to promote that growth. So at IBM, you have the tools, you had all that. But beyond that, it's important to have clarity. I keep thinking about this. In a world that's so crowded, think about clarity creating capacity. Capacity to think, capacity to strategize, capacity to focus on the priorities you have. But think about capacity. Always comes out of clarity. If you have clarity, you don't waste your time confused. So at IBM, it's very clear what we stand for. So we had our clear strategy, career velocity, for example. We understand that you want your career to go fast. So how do we enable you to think that way? So all this creative leadership we had at one point, all this based on skills. And this is the funny part, right? Now, today, everything is skills-based, but we are doing skills-based everything in 2009, 2010. So it's been 11 years of skills as a currency. And now we are evolving to capabilities. And now we are evolving to what are the enduring human capabilities. So recruiters now have a responsibility to actually not only serve the managers hiring the talent, but actually we have a consultative approach to that, because actually the recruiter could play a big role in identifying what are the nuances and the capabilities you are looking for that actually you didn't describe in your description. So it's interesting how recruiters now in a great position. And to your point, your company too, you have to accelerate the experience. People don't have patience to wait for phone calls back from people and all this. If you have a platform that interacts with the candidates in the onboarding, like you said, I love the idea that you could have a frictionless onboarding experience. I love that. IBM has been doing that for a long time, but because we have the technology behind us.
Yeah, I suppose if you want to hire people who are ambitious, want to progress in their career rapidly, as you did in IBM, it wouldn't be suitable to have a recruitment process which would be longer than your competitors.
Exactly.
They say hire slow, fire fast. I always try to counter it by saying, no, it should be maybe the other way around. I mean, hire fast.
I agree.
Maybe fire fast as well, but definitely hire fast if you can. If you can make the right hire fast, it would be better than the right hire slow. So if somebody is listening here and falls in love with the idea of working for IBM, how could they self-eliminate themselves? What would be somebody who would not be happy at IBM? Because I used to work at SAP, 70,000, maybe more now, employees worldwide. And I felt a little bit like a nobody in a really big ocean, like a drop of water in the ocean. And so it wasn't really right for me. I guess IBM is going to be a little bit the same. Like you need to be very group oriented.
Look, I can't talk for IBM because I'm not right now. However, I tell you this. I tell you how I got a job at IBM. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody at IBM. I had my own practice as a consultant, executive coaching, trainer. I did everything, HR consulting. And I moved to more far away from the city, from New York City. And I was right next to IBM. And somebody said, why you're going to the city every day? Go work for IBM. I said, why not? And I found the name of the head of talent there in diversity. And I called. The assistant still jokes with me today. I called and said, can I talk to him? No, sir. Can I give you my resume? No, sir. Can I have his email? No, sir. Go to the regular process. I said, okay, that's not going to work for me. So I knew somebody from New York in our HR community that was at IBM, and the suffix of their emails was us.ibm.com. So I got his name, and I remember writing 15 combinations of his name and R.Glover.R. And I kept doing combinations. One of them went through, and he answered. And he said, interesting resume. I will pass to HR. I said, okay, everybody says that. I will pass to HR. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in front of HR, and he says, I'm interviewing you because he asked me to, but what am I going to do with you? I said, I don't know, but I can be your greatest cultural evangelist for IBM. So you can consider me one of your champions. In 3 weeks, I had a job offer, and the rest is history. So it's really interesting, right? How things happen. But if you want to be disqualified, talk about expecting predictability, expecting a predictable work, expecting certainty. That's not a place for you, because IBM evolves quickly and we are always so dynamic there. It's really cool for somebody who wants to grow capabilities and skills. It's incredible, but not for somebody who is looking for certainty and predictable work. That doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, I think that's great insight. I would have expected the opposite, actually. I would be like, IBM, they've got such, they're so organized is my mental picture. And so I would associate that with predictability, but I understand it's different. And with Prudential Financial, what is the type of profile you would encourage not to come? It's like the opposite of employer branding. Like, who do we not want to hire?
Well, don't tell us how good you are. Tell us how good you want to be, because we are very much into the learning phase of our history. We are becoming a very learning culture. It's really taking hold. We are talking to our leaders about learning, being curious, and it works because we are hiring, for example, we are hiring for propensity to learn, for capabilities that are ahead of your role. We are asking people to tell us how do they envision their careers progressing, because if you want a vertical career path, that's not the place to be. I think we want people to go experience as much as they can, because we depend on that diversity of thought. We depend on your experiences being diverse, because our customers are expecting different offerings. We can't do things in silos anymore. So if you expect to come to a role and progress to become the senior vice president in that role, in that vertical, that's not really a good thing to say.
Yeah, you also have to own your career and be ready to move.
Exactly. Yeah. Be ready to move across everywhere.
Nobody wants to get financial advice from somebody who's been saying the same thing for 10 years.
Exactly. Very good point. Good point.
Great. Well, one question I love to ask is around, traumatic experiences around talent. We've all made bad hires in the past. Can you walk us back memory lane and tell us about somebody you hired where, well, it was the wrong hire for the role?
But I tell you, this is actually ended up being a success story.
Okay.
I'm very into taking bets on talent. So when I was transforming management development at IBM, I got a call from somebody who was in Mexico. And I said, okay, interesting, right? I want an international mindset, a really multicultural thinker, but it was a catastrophe. She arrived and actually she was so stuck in her old ways. She was so afraid because actually her experience in Mexico was really not great and her maturity wasn't there yet. So I was so close.
She had done a great interview. She had
excited. She nailed. She was so excited about the dynamic ways of doing things. She can't wait to try new things. And I said, okay, I like the raw material. But the raw material comes with those of consequences. But the good news is this: I don't give up. I was this close to firing her, I have to say. However, I said, you know what? This is my challenge. As a leader, this is my challenge. How can I make her successful in a different role? Somehow I'm going to make her successful. It took me 3 months to turn something around. Today, she's still at IBM and she's the head of communications, one of the communication leaders there. So I love that story because we're still friends and we laugh about it, how hard it was in the beginning because it was horrendous. But at the end of the day, you know what? I could have fired her, but I didn't. So don't give up on talent that quickly.
Okay.
But it was
It was traumatic?
it
Okay.
was traumatic because I
If,
needed somebody, and
if you could do it differently, you would do it a bit differently?
oh yeah, I would think about capabilities. Like I said before, you need to think about capabilities. You have to explore what are the capabilities people bring. You can have certifications, you can have diplomas, you can have experiences, but tell me how you bring all this together to build capability and value. And I think that's the next frontier of interviewing.
It's like capabilities, you mean like more skill based?
Plus abilities plus what's your invention, right? What is the how do you merge skills, capabilities, and abilities into this capability of actually creating value? And there is something between skills and ability that is the art of interviewing that you find. But it's funny. I love this because it's not concrete, but it's real. I think it's real.
And then you had to go in panic mode and basically upskill her.
Completely. Was coaching 101 every day at the end.
All right. So even if you make a terrible hiring mistake, if the desire is there, don't give up. There's still a road to salvation. Reinvest in the person, give it a few months, and maybe.
Hey, but you see, now you said something interesting. Maybe why? The person needs to be willing. She said, help me. This is the problem. That's the differentiator. I would fire her if she said, you are the problem. But she didn't. She said, I know I'm the problem. Help me. And I took that bet. So it was cool. It was very cool.
I've got a few names running through my head. Who needs help? I think everybody has got to be thinking about that all the time. Who needs help? Yeah. Great. Well, Wagner, it was delightful to get to know you and to learn a little bit more about the Future of Work initiative at Prudential. I mean, we went down memory lane a little bit more than you probably wanted, but thanks for sharing. Where can people get a hold of you if they want to find out more?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I love interacting with people. LinkedIn, Wagner Denuzzo, I'm there and I'm open to new connections. It's fun.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you, Max.
And that was Wagner Denuzzo from Prudential Financial, reminding us that even if you make the wrong hire, if that person is aware that they're not quite ready for the job, you may still salvage the situation and you may still work with them to make it work. Hope you enjoyed it and that you'll be back for more. Remember to subscribe to the Recruitment Hackers podcast.